Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
And good morning to you all. The first day of August 2024. And lots to talk about, as is the norm for these times. Let's just jump right into the Trump appearance at the Black Journalists Convention. Good God in heaven! I have the quote. I mean, he went on and on, so there's more than one way he said it. Here is everything on the subject, I believe. I don't know. Is she Indian or is she black? I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person. I think somebody should look into that. Well, people did look into it, and of course, he was found to be full of you know what. Here's another iteration from yesterday's event. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black. And now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know. Is she Indian or is she black? I mean, And he went off on she was Indian all the way. And then she went black. Oh my God. And then, of course, there's that, and then there's calling the black female journalists who were questioning him all manner of nasty and rude, and it's just mind-blowing. Now, it's been suggested that the audience he was really looking for is not the audience that was there. I don't know about that, because his comments will, of course, play to his base, but what's the point? I mean, his base is solid. He can't win unless he attracts people who are not solidly in his base, and he just continues to go around offending women, minorities, all kinds of people who, I don't know. Keep it up, Donald. We're loving it. Man, to go from the despair we were feeling not too long ago to this genuine sense of hopefulness is head spinning. In regard, though, to Harris's ethnicity and her color designation, there was a really interesting piece written weeks ago, not in response to this, by John McWhorter, who is a linguist. It is his calling to call out usage of language that is, well, let's use the word of the day, weird or incorrect. But he's always very, very thought provoking, and often says things that do rile folks up. He is himself he would argue, mixed race, although he identifies as black. And you identify as Black if you're mixed race because you identify with how people see you more than anything else, right? Although he points to an uncle he had who could have easily passed as white, but who definitely identified as Black. Now, there is no doubt that Harris has identified as Black, going to a Black college, Black sorority, whatever. The reality of all of this is to bring us back to America's original sin and to our inability to escape our slaveholding, racist past and present. So McWhorter, as I said, I think this is from a week or so ago, he posed the question, why is Harris Black? And then knowing that a lot of people would be jumping on him for that, especially Black people, he said, whoa, hear me out. And it's the hearing him out that is fascinating. He notes that Kamala Harris has proudly, numerous times, recounted the story of her parents, both immigrants, that she is the product of an interracial and intercultural marriage. Mother from India, father from Jamaica. So McWhorter says, in terms then of her ancestry, she is as much South Asian as she is Black. But the convention in this country is the South Asian is superseded by the Black. And gone is even what we might have in a day called mixed race or biracial. And McWhorter points out, and again, it's not just Harris, it's, Barack Obama, he too. A white mother, a Black father. But McWhorter says if Obama had ever called himself white, we'd look at him and think he'd lost his mind. But he is as white in terms of his makeup as he is Black. So McWhorter says it doesn't take long to figure that Blackness blacks out any other descriptor. Blackness blacks out whatever other race is involved. And that this is what most of us have learned is the rule. It is what we do. And then he says, and it's indisputable, this approach of ours contradicts not just logic, but also itself. In contrast to the centuries-old one drop rule, that was the segregationists go to, the racists go to. One drop of Black blood and you're tainted, you're Black. But in contrast to that, which was invoked to describe the indelible stain of having ancestral so-called black blood. Here we are now in 2024, progressive types like us, enlightened enough to know that race is hooey, that it is purely a social construct with absolutely no biological basis. So, if that's true, then why does having some black forebears make you black, regardless of the rest of the family tree, which might have other races represented on it, which frankly is the case for almost all blacks, and I would argue probably maybe a majority of whites. And he points out that when you talk to people from other countries, they don't get us. They don't understand it. They find it perplexing. But why did you say Obama was black? I mean, when he's half black and half white, why is the white disappear? Why is her Asian disappearing? And he once tried to explain it to a Russian speaking guy. He said, I spoke Russian with the facility of a 2-year-old, and so without access to the nuanced verbal machinery I needed, I had no way to explain to this Russian man the American way of seeing blackness as the dominant heritage for any mixed race people. And the trouble I had is because it makes no logical sense. A case in point, and I think I've told this story before. I had acquaintances who he was a black man, young black man, born in the Dominican Republic. His wife was a 6 foot tall. He was like 6'4". She was like a 6 foot tall blonde from, I think, the South Hills. And they were just a gloriously beautiful couple. And then they coupled and had a child. And that child had blonde hair and blue eyes and white skin. And when his dad, who was clearly black to our eyes, would hold him, it seemed wondrous. But on the other hand, there was this. When his son was finally speaking, and he was sitting on his father's lap, must have been about 3, he said to his dad, "Daddy, I have a secret." And his father said, "What?" And the kid whispers in his ear, "I'm black." So again, it makes no logical sense. Now, when McWhorter was writing this, he says, well, one thing you hear over and over is that people say I'm black because they want to own it. They want to say, I'm proud of it. They don't want to appear to be ashamed of it or muddling it by even saying biracial or mixed race, because in this cauldron of the racist culture that we have inhabited and still do, they want to own it. And another thing he says is, you hear over and over again, no matter how a person sees themselves, if they look darker, the world will process them as black. And no matter how complex their genealogy is, it doesn't protect them from the effects of prejudice, discrimination, and all that comes with it, including possible police violence. And so the feeling goes, better to be a realist, and starting with the racial category with which to identify. If I'm seen as black, I'm black. No reason to go about with the nuance, but my mother was, but my father was. It brings up lots of really troubling things. The fact that we have allowed others' inability to see the complexity of the reality of so many people. Complexity we don't do. And he notes that the term biracial has really gone out. Mixed race out. But Kamala Harris is black. And the talk will be, she will be the second black president. She will also, of course, be the first Asian American president. But that's something for the Asian Americans to celebrate. But he ends with this. So, of course, what is most important is that Harris, Obama, and others of mixed racial heritage can now get as far as they have, to the top. And as for our habit of processing blackness as foundational, just like, of course, the racist Strom Thurmond did. You got some black blood, you black. So we have adopted that same racist, what was a racist idea. Our habit now is processing blackness as foundational. And he says, imagine how absurd this is going to be in just a few more generations. Because we as a people are mixing it up as never before. And you know that. I know it. one look at our Olympic team. You don't even understand the Haji. You look at a beautiful young Olympian and you think, whoa, and you cannot parse with your eyes the complexity of that beautiful person's genealogy. But we, trapped in our original sin, can only see black. Just saying. Speaking of conjuring up beautiful Olympic athletes, someone explain this to me. I think I probably know the answer myself, but somebody explain this to me. So I was watching the men's all around gymnastics thing. God almighty, these guys are amazing. And I'm watching them do their routines. They do a floor routine like the women, but other than that, it's a lot of different stuff, of course. The men and women do different kinds of things. Wait, there are a few more that are alike, but it doesn't matter. Here's the question I have. Why do the men wear those form-fitting, sort of like tights, but not quite, leggings of a sort? And doing this stuff. And why do the women have to do it in essentially bathing suits? Anybody got a good answer? Huh? When I'll tell you, I might have enjoyed seeing, a little glimpse of ass cheek on some of these astonishingly muscled young men watching that stuff. They must have the butts of steel. I wouldn't mind seeing that, huh? But couldn't. They were all covered up. So how come the women have to wear this stuff with half their behinds hanging out? And not only that, with bejeweled bathing suits, false eyelashes, long nails. How do you keep long nails when you're doing that? You wouldn't break every nail at every practice? Makeup. Wait, not just makeup. I mean, unbelievable makeup. Huh? How come? I'm just asking. And so, yeah, maybe a woman can be president and all that kind of stuff, but what is the stickiness of this insistence of women athletes having to perform these amazing athletic feats half naked while the men do not? I'm just asking. Because it pisses me off. I got a caller, I think. Hang on. Yep. Hello there.
Hello, you do have a caller.
I do have a caller. It's Mr. Clarence. Hi.
Yes, first of all, I'm still alive.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Okay. Well, I was going to say something about the race thing, but I've given up on that.
Well, do say something about it. If I mean, do say something about what did you feel about? I mean, McWhorter's thing about why are we still doing this?
Yeah, well, my whole idea about race. My thing is, but if I'm talking about a quote black quote white issue, the first thing I always qualify, I always say stuff like, look, if you still believe that race exists, in my eyes, you think the world is flat. Okay, then I'll go on.
Okay.
That's how I always qualify it with stuff like that.
Okay.
And like you said, I always, so, and then when you started talking about the female athletes and the male athletes, the first thing that came to my head is, do they have to? Or is that like one of those traditions? I mean, is it like a requirement for them to wear those outfits, or is it just something that's been around for so long? And one of these days, some female, like, what's her name? The superstar? Because I don't pay attention to this stuff.
Simone Biles.
The woman who just wanted.
Simone Biles.
Yeah, Biles. If she came out and wore, a form-fitting outfit like the men, now the style changes.
Right.
It changes because she started it. There was a track runner. I think with the long fingernails and stuff like that.
Yeah, Flo. She started doing. Yeah. Right.
She started wearing long form-fitting pants. That's what I thought. I said, do they have to, or do they have to wear it, or is it something that doesn't bind their joints and muscles and things like that?
I just want to say, I think it's an interesting question because it seems to me that there was this talk about, hey, how come during the beach volleyball, the women have to wear bikinis? They're practically naked, right?
I saw about 30 seconds of it, and like about 2 seconds of a basketball game because my TV happened to be on NBC when I turned it on.
Yeah.
But the U.S. it was like early. The U.S. was playing some other country. The other country girls weren't wearing bikinis.
They weren't.
They were wearing,
okay.
Yeah.
My understanding, though, is that there was a requirement of some kind of the proper dress code and that it got, there was a hue and cry rather recently, and it was relaxed. Now, I think some women might say this is how I like to do it. Fine, if it's their choice. I don't know if in the women's gymnastics that's the way they have to do it. They have to wear
that's like my question too.
I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be one of those things, as time goes on, that will be changed. I think will be changed, because I don't really pay attention to, I couldn't even think of Simon Biles' name, just like that's almost not being able to think of like Michael Jordan or something, But so sorry, I got to go back to the race thing. We're talking about the mixed race and all that stuff. So you want to see something? Come to one of my cookouts.
You mean the panoply of human mixing?
Yeah, it's incredible. yeah, it's incredible. None of my nephews, none of them have married a quote black woman. None, zero. yeah, and I have two. Well, one is I have a trans nephew and married before he transitioned. Gay, you name it, lesbian, everybody's there, except for Asian. So I might have to, marry an Asian woman just to.
Someone's got to go out and
Jewish.
You got no Jews and no Asians. All right, well you're not quite there.
Not yet. We're working on it. I can imagine with one of my sisters, bringing she's married to a white man, but she's so Christian that I don't know, bringing a Jewish person in there might be a disaster.
That's a bridge too far.
I'm joking.
Yeah. Well, good to hear from you as always, Clarence. Thank you.
That whole I watched.
What? Go ahead.
Trump thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my goodness, that was like I just always don't know what to respond.
No.
But so I try to go, okay, how are Trump's people going to respond to this? They're going to think it was great. He stood up for himself. He went to the lion's den and all this kind of good stuff. And
right.
So you've heard of the term what is it called? Dunning-Kruger effect. That's what that is?
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is. What is it?
It's what people. It's basically it's basically people are so dumb that they don't realize that they're dumb. You know what I mean? That's basically it. So I sat for like 20 minutes. It was going through my head. I said they should, I don't know, start calling this the Trump or doofus effect or something. 'Cause it's I just you always try to use them. I don't like to intellectualize or philosophize and all that kind of stuff. And it just every time people try to defend this stuff, I'm like, what is going on? Of course, there are people who, just using it to make money and grifting and all that kind of stuff. But the crowds and things like that, I don't understand it.
No.
I can't come up with anything.
No. I know.
I know.
Yeah. I know.
Although one philosopher said that some people, what's it called? It's called the my side bias. They could be the smartest person in the world, but in order to, support their group, they become biased. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
well, I think I see that playing out a lot now. Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's a tribal thing, which you, as a more highly evolved human, don't get into either.
I find myself every once in a while doing it, and then I catch myself. You know what I mean? I try to catch myself. Am I saying this just because I'm bald? But we bald people got to stick together. So.
Good to hear from you. Thank you, Clarence.
Maybe. There's been times I've been sitting there. I've been in my car. I figured out a way to listen to you. I'm like, I can't call in my car because I got to drive, so I can't call. So.
Well, what a responsible character you are. You know how many people are calling in their car? Jeez.
So you know what? Yesterday I was heading out somewhere, and light turns green. I'm making a left, but this is at the Heidelberg exit in Bridgeville area.
Okay.
I'm making a left, and a PennDOT truck, one of the, not the big massive trucks, but one of the ones who usually have, the guys on it, came flying through the the red light. I mean, he would have killed me if I was on the phone.
Wow.
I mean, he was flying.
Wow.
And I just stepped on my brake, and he just buzzed right on by. I mean, he would have broadsided me and knocked me out.
He did.
Because I'm like extremely focused when I'm driving. Extremely focused.
Good for you. Yeah. Good for you. Well, stay that way, because it is getting increasingly dangerous out there. No doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I always ramble. I always tell like new drivers, you're the only one on the road that can drive. Everybody else is an idiot.
That's right.
Remember that.
That's right. And that's what everybody thinks. Yeah.
I said, you're the only one who could drive. I said, so pay attention. Don't expect people to do what you think they should do. Expect them to do the opposite.
Exactly right.
And you won't die.
Exactly right.
Now I'm done rambling.
Okay, you. Goodbye.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
You're welcome. Bye.
Okie doke. So let's see. I've got something that I've been. There's so many things here. Damn it. Hey, the Murdochs. Did you see this? I mean, it's such a big story. I love it. The Murdoch family is at each other's throats, and in fact, at each other's throats in court, trying to determine who, when the old goat patriarch, who's now 93, finally decides to get up and die, who's going to take over. Now, the thing is Murdoch has had a trust that was developed, that was developed to give all four of, now he's got more than 4 children, but the 4 children from his first 2 marriages, essentially ownership, equal shares, 4. Yeah, the 4 oldest children get the trust which controls all those Fox entities when he dies. But he now is trying to make an end run because he sees that 3 of those 4 would likely outvote the one who is most like him, the one currently running Fox. That's Lachlan. And so he's trying to change this irrevocable family trust to ensure that it's Lachlan who would maintain Fox News, Wall Street Journal, all of the print stuff, everything as his father would, namely as the conservative outlets they are. Conservative is not the right word. Radical and anti-democratic propaganda outfits that they are. And the 3 other children are enraged, and the fight is in court. And we all stand to win if the 3 kids win. This is playing out strangely in a Nevada probate court. Nevada, I guess, has a reputation for, I don't know, you know how, Delaware has a reputation for this, so corporations do their business, they do their stuff there. Nevada, apparently, when it comes to trusts and wills, can play fast and loose with folks. So Murdoch is doing this here, I guess, because he thinks it's the best shot he's got. He now is estranged from those 3 children. And so this is playing out in Reno. And I believe it's next month that the trial occurs, or the sentence, the decision comes down. I'm not sure exactly how this works. If it's there is a commissioner, a probate commissioner, who handles cases like this. So I imagine it's just one guy who's going to make this decision. So we will see. And the one other thing that I saw in this that fascinated me was Murdoch's making moves to make it look like he is doing this, not to screw his children, but to make it appear that the trust is a very independent entity. I don't know. Don't ask me to follow all this crap, but listen to one of the maneuvers he's made. He has replaced 2 of his longtime executives who were tasked with being his personal representatives on the trust with 2 different people. And guess who one of them is? Trump's former Attorney General, William Barr. Mm-hmm. Bill Barr, who, unlike Trump's 3 children who aren't talking to him, did show up at Trump's most recent wedding. And so it is Bill Barr who is leading Murdoch's effort to rewrite the trust. That guy just can't do enough damage. Very busy little beaver. Anyway, what happens to Fox News, to all of these Murdoch properties, the Post, the Wall Street Journal, Fox Entertainment, Fox News is now really resting with one man in a Reno courtroom. Incredible. I ain't holding my breath. I don't know what Trump will continue to say after he said what he said yesterday, but you do see how Trump, he does not, he never, apologizes. He never steps away from, he doubles down. And he has really done that with his remark of there'll be no need to vote in the future, which he told his Christians. And he was, I think, was it the next day or 2 days later, he was on, the warm, fuzzy confines of Laura Ingram's show on Fox, and she was throwing him softball after softball, trying to get him to, explain that in a way that it doesn't sound like exactly what it sounded like. And he wouldn't do it. He even doubled down. He said, among other things, Catholics are treated very badly by this administration. Yeah, Joe Biden is the most pious Catholic that has ever served as a president of this country. But his administration is treating Catholics very badly. He said, and Trump went on to say, they're persecuted. And then he, in his word salad, digressive way, ended up with the Jews and said that Jewish people should have their heads examined if they vote for Democrats. He's also said that Harris hates Jews, which is interesting because she goes to bed every night with one. Not quite clear on that, how he came to that determination. But Ingram kept coming at him saying, yeah, but you mean, she kept saying things like, you mean, what you're saying is you don't have to vote for you because you'll have 4 years in office. I mean, you're not saying you're not going to. And he said, I said, vote for me. You're not going to have to vote ever again. It's true. And then he repeated it again. Don't worry about the future. You have to vote November 5th. After that, you don't have to worry about voting anymore. I don't care because we're going to fix it. The country will be fixed and we won't have to even need your vote because, frankly, we will have such love. If you don't want to vote anymore, that's okay. Oh, God help us. God deliver us. Oh, my. Okay. Maybe Milton's going to take issue with McWhorter. I don't know. That'd be fine with me. Let's see. I got you here. Hang on. With respect to Mr. McWhorter, the reason for the one drop adage is far more sinister than he indicates. To my understanding, the one drop rule began in America just after Bacon's Rebellion, when the term white to describe those of purely European descent was first used and legitimized as a legal class of citizenry. I'm remembering reading something similar, Milton. I think you're right. The reason is twofold. First, it creates a break from long-held British laws of inheritance, where any offspring of the male in a conjugal relationship can lay claim to his estate after his death. By classifying anyone with a single drop of black blood as Negro, the early colonial law prevented anyone with African ancestry from laying claim to any assets of a white male estate. And think of all the white males with estates who produced children with black slaves. This takes all their children out of claiming any of their father's estate. Milton goes on, now here's the sinister part. At the same time, the Virginia House of Burgesses passed laws establishing race. They also determined that white males could not be prosecuted for violating their African female property. Wow, rape away. Thus, no offspring nor progeny of that initial violation could make claims against the master's estate as a legitimate offspring, nor could the mother prosecute the master for sexual violence. Thus, one drop. And Milton sends me also a picture of his granddaughter who's black, but yeah, Milton, she could pass. Yeah, she's black. Okay, let's see what I got here. Caller, hello.
Good morning, Lynn. How are you?
I'm good.
Well, we missed you, but you deserved a break. This is going to be very brief, but somehow yesterday on my iPad, I got this. It's called A Hillbilly Funeral for J.D. Vance, a.k.a. Pensified. And it is hilarious. And I think at this point, we all need a great laugh. Okay. And I think you would enjoy it. Now, he has several of these strips out, but his name is Dark Brandon. Have you ever heard of him?
Well, I've heard the Dark Brandon meme was a Biden meme, with the sunglasses and all that. Yeah.
Yes, but this is somebody who goes under the name of Dark Brandon. I just thought maybe over the weekend, if you get a chance, it's hilarious.
Okay, I thank you. You can't send it to me?
You know what? For some reason, I tried sending it to my sister, and it wouldn't work. I can try, but yes.
Okay.
We'll see if I can send it. But anyway, I think you would enjoy. I think everybody would enjoy it.
Okay. Well, thanks for the heads up. We'll look.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye. Ansel writes, so I'm not a woman, so don't shoot the messenger. But my daughter and I were watching the women's gymnastics, and she said, they can't possibly have any underwear under there. I said, I'm guessing the underwear is built in. And she agreed, but then went on to say that she thinks there's an advantage in women's gymnastics to wear as little as possible. Those so-called bathing suits are probably perfectly fitted to their bodies by tailors because, as she put it, You can't have that material moving in the wrong direction on your floor exercise. As for the guys, I think those slightly loose-fitting leggings type of pants give them an advantage in terms of the visual effect. Imagine the pommel horse done in regular shorts. Well, but an advantage to one is an advantage to it. I don't know. I think it's just the way we do it. And I think the initial reason was to ogle women's bodies. That's my guess. And I can't imagine why I would ever think such a thing. Just saying. Okay. When Clarence was talking about his cornucopia of a family in terms of genders and race and all of that, that is increasingly, of course, the norm. Even families, in like red states, they've got intermarriage, they've got, gays and stuff in them. And, the world comes calling, whether you want it to or not. And it's, there's so many more of us than of these wackos who can't live with the reality that change is constant. It's one of the few constants in our life. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, and sometimes people disagree on whether or not it is one or the other. But this idea that trans stuff is some kind of a new construct, I mean, we know it's not, because there was that, and I'm going to blank on her, I can't even remember, that tennis player way back when. And then I think there was another. There have been people who were in the public eye in the past, like the last century, who changed their identity from male to female or female to male because they wanted to be true to themselves. But it goes even further back than I was thinking. I mean, it goes back to the beginning of humankind, I am quite sure. Primitive cultures dealt with trans people because it's normal. Always been. Some cultures can't deal with it. Other cultures are more benign and accepting. But there was an obituary recently, and it's one of those old, the New York Times is going back and doing obits of people who they didn't do obits on because, well, they weren't white men. And this one does appear to be a white man, but he began his celebrity as the premier women's cyclist in Belgium in the 30s, 1930s, obviously. And he was born, Willy de Bren, was born in Belgium on the day that England declared war on Germany in World War I, 1914. His parents were told they have a beautiful little girl, and he grew up as a girl. But from a young age, he felt he wasn't. He saw a sign once, at the time, of a cycling competition in a bar, and some of his friends said, "Hey, you should get on. You're really fast on the bike. Why don't you get on there?" And he did, and won money. And he was at the time working at a job he wasn't too into, and he thought, "Man, there could be money in this." So he, because he was seen as a female, began entering cycling competitions all over the place, and even was so good that he was given a free bike by a manufacturer. He was already making money off being that good. He competed in an unofficial women's cycling world championship. The reason it was unofficial is that the men who controlled sports refused to acknowledge women cycling. And in fact, I don't think they did until 1958. But he won that international competition. Never could go to the Olympics because he was a woman. But he could not escape his desire to be who he was. He sought out books. He found a German sexologist who at the time was offering medical care to transgender and intersex people. That's in the 1920s. And he was quoted as saying, "I grew more convinced that an error had been made in determining my status." So he was 22 years old when he stepped away from women's cycling and sought help to somehow transition. And it took him a long time through courtrooms and stuff, but not as long as I think it would have taken somebody in this country. He ultimately received a new birth certificate with his name and sex marker changed to reflect his male identity. And by 1937, so if he was born in 14, he was still in his 20s, he was able to announce, which he happily did, that he was a man and would now live his life as a man. And he wrote a long essay in a Belgian newspaper titled "A New Life." So the article says that he became one of several high-profile athletes in the 1930s to publicly undergo gender transition, among them a Czech sprinter, Zdeněk Kubek, and the British shot putter Mark Weston. After leaving women's sports, he entered some of the men's competitions, but that didn't go as well when he competed against other men. And in 1938, he married Clementine Jutters, and they went on to open a cafe in Brussels. He ended up coming to the United States with his wife and was spotted selling Belgian donuts at the World's Fair in New York in 1965. He died in 1989. Willie de Bruin. And again, I share that just because there's so many of us who think the trans thing is some made up or all new thing. It is not. I think there's reasonable, I don't get upset with people who have different points of view on when a child should, transition or whether medically. I don't, because I've seen what the British have found on their side, very laborious studies, and I don't know. I can't have a clue as to what is right in this regard. I will humbly say I don't know. But I think if somebody questions that kind of thing, it does not mean they are anti-trans. They're just worried about early intervention. Who knows? Not me. Okay, that be it for me. I thank you so much. My first week back has been good. I've enjoyed it. I don't know if you're aware of the fact that I've got more energy. I do. And a slightly better frame of mind. Maybe even more than slightly better. So thank you. And as I suggest, don't feel you gotta know everything that's going on as it's going on all the time. It'll happen whether you're watching, looking, listening, or clicking around. It'll happen. Live your life. And thank you so very much for joining.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.